Hey, folks, welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast. Got Matthew and me here doing another episode with you all today. A little bit late getting started, but hey, we're here.
Yeah.
Better
Good
than
things
not
come
being
to
here,
those who
right?
wait. Yeah. It's going to be a good one, right? We should tease it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's. I mean, this is our monthly Justified Saves episode, which means it's going to be a good one.
Yeah. And it is my favorite. I have to admit, I like this episode, this Justified Saves the best.
Yeah, it makes me go to sleep, apparently.
It's my soothing voice.
Yeah, we got some really good stories today. Like, there's some serious lessons to be learned from this episode. So, really looking forward to doing it with you, brother.
Absolutely.
Yeah, lots of good stuff. Some good and some tough lessons, both for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we've got to stay true to that, right? Like, we present not just good stories, but those that aren't so good. And so.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Yep, that is for sure. I'm gonna try something here. Bear with me. I know we're live, but guys, I've been like playing with my camera, trying to get things to work better. No, I don't like that either, and it still makes my face too hot.
Yeah.
Oh, well. I don't know.
I don't have that problem. I'm not too hot, so you know what I mean.
Well, your lighting is always good, like, and I don't know what it is, but no matter what I do, like, it's something to do with my camera and in the computer and something in the lighting situation that I'm in, and it always makes all these hot spots in my face.
Yeah,
it's weird. If I do this right, it's good, and then nope, not anymore. Oh well. Well, guys, let's do it. Meaning, let's kick off the recorded audio part of the show here. If this is your first time joining us live, we welcome you. Thanks for being here, for being a part of the show. This is a podcast, so by that I mean we record the show as in an audio format. You guys just get to happen to be along for the ride and watch us live as we do it. And then, of course, this gets published to the podcast feed, which can be found all over the place on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Audible, tons of places. Pretty much wherever you find podcasts, that's where you can find the Concealed Carry Podcast. So if you're not able to watch things or catch it live, just have the podcast downloaded on your phone and listen on your commute or while you sit and work or whatever it is. All right, let's do it in 3, 2, 1. This is the Concealed Carry Podcast, episode number 485, and welcome to jeez welcome to that's the first time I messed that up in like forever. Let's try that again. And welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network. I am your host, Riley Bowman, and today we have Matthew Maruster co-hosting, running things behind the scenes, things that we don't see, nor do we understand.
It's best you don't see them because it'd be like, totally hectic stuff. No, but I pulled a lot of good stories for today, some sad ones, some good ones. This is going to be a good episode. I had to throw out a lot of other really interesting defensive gun uses, but we got the cream of the crop. So
yeah,
excited.
Yeah, for sure, man. I noticed that actually, that I was looking through the stories and I was like, there's a lot here. And so we're going to move right along. And I knew that you had to cut out some other stuff too. So it's been a busy month. And that's probably a bit unfortunate, right? Because what this means is that there's been a lot of people who have had to use deadly force to defend their lives. And that's not something I wish upon anybody. But It's a reality that we must face with, and that's why many of us carry a gun. And from these stories, we take from them lessons to be learned that hopefully helps us be a little bit better prepared and make a little bit better decisions than sometimes people make in some of these circumstances. Give you a lot of food for thought, context, right? Today's episode sponsored, brought to you by the Guardian Conference, the 2021 Guardian Conference, that is. GuardianConference.com is where you can learn more. We're still in our super early bird pricing, which means for Guardian Nation members, it's like $300 off right now to participate in the Guardian Conference, which is a steal of a deal. Those of you that are not Guardian Nation members, technically the registration is not open up, but if you go to the website, you actually are able to sign up. But you're not going to get the Guardian Nation member price. You'll still get a really good price. We have early bird pricing available. No promises as to when that'll go away or for how long that'll be valid. So don't delay on getting signed up for the Guardian Conference. This is going to be a 3-day event in Oklahoma City, or at least near Oklahoma City. We've got Larry Vickers, Jeff Gonzalez, by the way, who just came on board and signed on for being one of our instructors at this event. I think where it stands right now, we pretty much have our instructors figured out. There was a couple of things still pending, and Jeff was one of those things. And I think where we're at, we're sitting pretty good. We've got Larry Vickers, Jeff Gonzalez. We got Matt Little, who puts on a fantastic class. I just was in his full 2-day course a little more than a week ago, and it was fantastic. Let's see. We've got, well, I'm teaching classes. That's, not nearly as cool or special. Steve Moses. Man, am I struggling today, Matthew?
Just a bit. It's all right.
Chuck Haggard, right? We'll have legal courses put on by Andrew Branca. We got Todd Fossey, who's going to be doing some hand-to-hand combatives type stuff. His integrative defense strategies, really good stuff from Todd. Guys, bunch of other great instructors. Learn more at guardianconference.com and get signed up. I know ammo is an issue, okay? We had somebody message us just today saying they really like to come. They're just not sure they can make it work with ammo. I realize that. I promise you, though, that this will be money worth spent, okay? So I hope that you'll see that and recognize that and find some way to make this happen, make it work. I'm also working behind the scenes to try to find some sourcing for ammo for students, but I cannot promise anything. All right. So I'm probably saying more than I should, even that, because some people will probably get their hopes up. I wouldn't do that at all. I've got to just keep plugging away and hopefully we're able to find some sourcing. But if not, guys, do your best to find some ammo. The big thing is you want to get that ammo shipped to us before the event. I think our cutoff date's September 13th. That has to be in hand. Because if you're going to be flying in, for instance, you're probably not going to be able to fly with 800 to 1,000 rounds of ammo. So go to the website, look up details under required gear about how to ship ammo, and there will be some instructions there for getting it to us. We've already received some of you guys' ammo, so that's fantastic. But guys, you got like 6-7 months dang near still to get signed up. Well, to get ammo and get to the event. So anyway, let's see. Also, I should mention that the Guardian Conference is presented by CCW Safe and also sponsored by, as a featured sponsor today I want to mention, is Mountain Man Medical. The Ready Up Gear flashlight. This is the modular compact MCF Spark, we call it. These are also a fantastic product, sponsors of today's episode. The Ready Up Gear MCF Spark. You can find it at readyupgear.com. I'll tell you, this has become my EDC handheld light because it's so compact, but super great performance for its size. 550 lumens with a 16340 battery, which we also have those rechargeable 16340s available on readyupgear.com. And it's got pretty decent throw for a light of this size. Candela numbers are not like amazing on it, but for lights of this size, they are actually. So You get a really high performance light in a very small, compact, true EDC size. See that? The Ready Up Gear MCF Spark. Well, Matthew, let's get into our first story.
Sure.
Why don't you share it with us? We got a 12-year-old boy who shoots and kills a home intruder after what I believe is his grandma, a 73-year-old woman, was shot during this robbery that took place in North Carolina, Goldsboro to be specific. According to myfox8.com is where you can find the news story. Of course, if you're not familiar, guys, with the podcast, we always put the links to these stories we share on this episode in the show notes for the episode. So if you guys want to go check out these stories for yourself, you can do so. Matthew, tell us about this 12-year-old boy that killed this home intruder to defend his grandma.
Yeah, this happened February 13th, like you said, Goldsboro, North Carolina. Not sure where that is, but 12-year-old boy is at home with we're assuming his grandmother, who's 73 years old. Two men forced their way into this apartment at around 1 a.m. in the morning. One of the two men shoots the 73-year-old woman. While that happens, the 12-year-old, there's not a lot of detail as far as exactly what happened inside, other than the 12-year-old has a firearm, shoots one of the intruders. The other one obviously runs. They both actually run. And basically they find this guy, with a gunshot wound down the street at an intersection. They take him and the 73-year-old woman to the hospital. The guy, the perpetrator, the bad guy in this case, one of the bad guys, he ends up dying from his gunshot wound, and the 73-year-old woman makes it through. So far, she seems to be recovering from her injuries. And right now, you have a 73-year-old woman who is recovering from gunshot wounds, right? And a 12-year-old who now has to live the rest of their lives after experiencing a home invasion where they have to shoot and kill somebody to defend their grandmother and themselves. It's an awesome story. I think about the fact that this child who's 12 years old, and yes, that's a child, but has the wherewithal to skillfully and handle the firearm, shoot this bad guy. It's a sad story at the same time, right? That this kind of stuff is happening. That the kid who died, he's 19 years old. So these are all kids except for the grandmother. So it's sad, but the outcome of the story is positive, at least as far as that. And but that 12-year-old's not going to be the same. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, it's quite a burden for a young child to carry. At the same time, I hope, while it would probably be wise for him to attend some counseling of some sort, I would hope that what he could see from this and learn, hopefully his parents and his grandmother, a psychologist, whoever can help him understand that, look, you saved your grandmother's life, right, with your actions. And that's a pretty big deal. It's kind of actually funny listening to you walk us through the story, Matthew, because you're like, this 12-year-old boy, he had a firearm. It's like the thought that the picture that went into my mind is this 12-year-old kid in this home is just like, he's got a gun. He's just walking around the house. He's packing a gun, I don't know where this gun came from, but he clearly knew how to get to it, knew how to access it, was aware of it. And, of course, we want to be cautious with, how we store and handle firearms inside homes with younger children around. Everybody's got to make, appropriate decisions for their household, because this is not the first time, nor is it the last time that we've had teen-aged, children. He's 12. He's not technically quite a teen, but we've had a few stories where 12 and 13 and 14 and 15-year-old, juveniles have for whatever reason, been able to grab a gun and use it in defense in their homes, which I think is great that's able to happen. So, have a good plan in place for how your firearms are stored and stored safely to keep out of the hands of unauthorized persons and those that are too young. But you might have some other procedures in place that allows a juvenile, resident of your home to be able to be part of the defensive solution. I don't want that for my own family. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm fortunate in that most of my days I spend working from home, and I'm here and able to be a part of my family, throughout the day and able to defend. But I would not wish it upon my own children to have to take that burden upon themselves.
Yeah. And probably a lot of you listening have kids and have firearms, right? And so you've probably gone through this thought in your head of the maturity level of your child. How involved are they with, firearms and training, and how much, leeway you can give them as far as, their maturity or their safety, ability to be safe with firearm and stuff. So everybody's different, right? We're not saying that this is, this grandmother was negligent in having the 12-year-old have access, but there's probably some 12-year-olds who shouldn't have access to firearms, right? Like that maybe are not ready for that kind of responsibility. So,
yep. Let's go now to a story in the Daily Mail, dailymail.co.uk. We probably could have picked a more local source for this, but the details actually in this article from Daily Mail are actually pretty spot on, because this is a story I've followed pretty closely because it's an incident that happened pretty close to where I used to live in Idaho, in the city of Idaho Falls, which is a relatively small city for, compared to most major cities in the U.S. But this was an unfortunate incident. There was a wanted man that had I believe, a warrant for his arrest. They tracked him down, tried to pull him over. This individual got out of the vehicle and started running. And he was basically running through this residential neighborhood where he was jumping over fences and things like that. And police are in pursuit. So you have a couple of officers that were pursuing him through this neighborhood. And during the course of this, the officers interacted with a couple of residents in the area. One of these officers spoke with the resident of a home who, they basically were like, hey, we're looking for a guy. He may have come through here. Have you seen him? And resident said, yeah, I saw him. He went this direction. And so cops are still in pursuit, right? They're trying to track this guy down. At some point, another officer, again, they're combing this neighborhood trying to find this guy. Another officer coming through the area, I believe proceeding through the yard of a home. He ended up spying a man matching, with a similar description, meaning, it was kind of like the whole, black shirt, blue jeans kind of description. And so this other officer comes into this yard, sees a man with a black shirt, and he's got a gun in his hand. And unfortunately, that officer discharged his weapon, but before anybody realized it, what he had just done is shot the resident of that home, which was the same resident that had been spoken with by another officer earlier in this chase. That resident of the home did pass away from a single gunshot wound. Now, later they did catch up with this wanted man, but unfortunately, the damage had been done, meaning that a good guy was killed. But there's, and these things are tough. These are difficult things, and this is an investigation that is ongoing, and likely will continue on, going for some time, I would guess, as they really, this is the type of thing, Matt, and I'm sure you understand, Matthew, having spent part of your career in law enforcement work, that when things go wrongly, like they did here, people want to know why, right? and we want to know how this came to be. How did we end up shooting an innocent man on his own property? And from what we know from details regarding the incident, I mean, there's definitely plenty for us to look at and go, yeah, we had a situation where the owner of this property came outside of his home with a gun in his hand. And I mean, cops are looking for a guy that they believe. By the way, I forgot to mention that they were told this man that they're chasing after was armed.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to put this in context of you're running through. This is at night. It's like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning. Actually, I'm looking. It's dark though. It doesn't really matter exactly what time. So it's late. It's dark. You see a man that matches even loosely a description and has a gun in his hand. What do you think? Right. Mm-hmm. So the first reaction by some people would be, well, couldn't we issue some warnings? Like, stop right there, show me your hands, drop the weapon, that kind of thing. We don't know yet if it's possible that some of those commands were issued before the shot that was fired that became fatal. Don't know that for sure though. Or it could have been something where an officer came around the corner of something, a corner of a garage, a building, a tree, and is practically face to face with this man wearing a black shirt and having a gun in his hand, and feels like there's no time except for to react. So I'm sure that this could be analyzed at a much, much deeper level, especially as more details became available, especially from how law enforcement does their job perspective. But what I'd like to rather focus on a little bit for us this time, and Matthew, I'll let you touch some more on it. In fact, I'd like you to elaborate, but I'm gonna point out the big lesson to be learned here for me is beware going outside your home in the middle of the night with a gun in hand, especially when there's law enforcement in the area and that kind of thing. Like, that's the big thing here is this guy didn't need to be outside his home at this point. He had spoken with officers already. He'd provided some details about, where this man may have gone. Okay, get back in your house, lock the doors, hunker down, right? I'm not saying, this is one of those things where Andrew Branca talks about it, Matthew, is like that things don't necessarily always have to be, and things aren't necessarily always good or right or perfect in the way they happen, right? It's sometimes crappy things happen, but they're reasonable decisions that were made, right? Mm-hmm. Crap happens, but it's still something that's considered to be reasonable considering the circumstances. Mm-hmm. And to me, on the surface, at least from the details we know about this incident, is that this is one of those crappy situations that is unfortunate, but reasonable decisions likely were made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what the phrase you're thinking of is he'll say it often is they're lawful but awful. Yeah. Right. Like the outcome is awful, and we don't know. There like you said, there's a lot that is going to go into this to see if the shooting was justified or not. But that's sort of irrelevant. As far as what we're trying to focus on here. I think, you hit it on the head. He knew that, and before I say anything, I'm not blaming this man for his own death, right? I'm not assigning blame to anybody here. What I'm trying to do is say there are some things that we could do better in order to lessen the likelihood and expose us to an outcome like this. And you said, he knew that officers were out in the area looking for somebody. That's indication number one, don't go outside your home. But this happens a lot. I don't want to say a lot. This happens more than it should. And it's almost always a series of, bad decisions on the homeowner's part or the police officer's part in certain ways that after you look back and you're like, oh man, if this person would have just done this or that person would have just done that, this wouldn't have happened, right? And so it's hard, but I think, we have to restrain ourselves. And this goes into, even if he did, I mean, some of these instances that happen like this, the person doesn't know that there's police outside. They hear something outside, right? And they go out to investigate, and it might be an officer searching the backyard and not identifying themselves, right? And they're searching a backyard for somebody who just bailed out of a car. And now you go outside and you startle an officer with the firearm pointed at him and you get shot. I mean, that's happened, right? And whether or not it's right or it should happen is sort of irrelevant to the point that we can do some things on our own, regardless of the level of training of the officers, right? Like, we can do some things on our own that increase our chances of this not happening. And that's, like you said, stay in your home. Don't go out searching around at night. When you head to the door, if somebody's knocking on your door at night, be aware of, you carrying a firearm to the door to open it up, and an officer might be looking through the window or side light on your door, see somebody coming with a gun, and it's happened where they just see a shadow with the firearm coming towards the door, and they're going to a burglary alarm or something like that and think, hey, somebody's coming to the door. This could be the person who's broken into this house. So, I wrote an article sort of covering this on the last incident that I thought was tragic. And I was surprised with a lot of the people that couldn't connect the dots between the homeowner's responsibility to, their component in the whole mix. And so I hope that, unfortunately, the more these things are made aware, people are made aware of these, that they'll start actually taking that kind of stuff seriously, that kind of, advice that, that's your castle and everything, but you really need to think about, what you're doing outside and inside with a firearm in your hand. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Consider other strategies. If you feel there is a need for whatever reason to go outside of your home and a similar situation is playing out, and again, I think the safest place for us is to be in the home, right? But consider having that gun in a holster, right? Mm-hmm. Rather than walking around with it in your hand, because an officer coming upon a man just randomly, but very quickly they're able to see that his hands are empty. That's going to present very differently than one where they round a corner and there's a guy standing there with a gun in hand. So just give that some thought, as far as if there's some ways or strategies where you may be able to, like, if this is the middle of the night, well, maybe consider having a means where you can strap on some rudimentary clothes and a belt and a holster or whatever, so you can have that be more or less concealed in the event that you have to interact with officers that are already a little bit antsy because, again, they're told they're looking for a wanted man, a man that, by the way, had a previous history with law enforcement and was known to be violent towards law enforcement. So that's why this is so tough, because there's a lot of factors and reasons why they were pursuing this guy so heavily like they were, and with the attitude that, hey, this could go sideways very quickly because we know who this guy is and he's done some pretty bad stuff before. So, and as the resident, you might not have all that context. So keep that in mind, that in a relatively benign, what you might perceive to be a benign situation might not be that at all. Matthew and I, we talked offline a few weeks back about a situation we had here locally in the Denver metro area where an officer was killed by another officer in a very similar kind of situation. Pursuit of a suspect at night, hopping fences, and came upon a fellow officer that just the way it played out and lighting and all of that, it was unclear as to who he was until shots were already fired. So anyway, It's unfortunate, and we want to try to avoid this kind of stuff from happening. Now, Matthew, you wrote a great article on our website. Link is in the show notes, called "Your Armed Response to the Late Night Knock at the Door Could Get You Killed." Guys, I encourage you to go read this. There's several examples of kind of similar situations that I think would be good food for thought for any of you listening or viewing to kind of go through and review and ponder and think about how that might impact your response to particularly late night incidents, whether it's a knock at the door, whether it's a noise in the house, whether it's a noise outside of the home on your property, whatever it is. Give it some thought as to how you handle yourself, conduct yourself, and respond to situations like this.
Yeah, agree, man.
Local10.com reports this out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Surveillance video captures Fort Lauderdale homeowner opening fire on burglars. This has some video associated with it, so I'm actually going to share some of that with those of you that are able to view with us live right now. But for those of you that cannot see this, that are listening to the podcast, well, feel free to go to the show notes and pull up this article for yourself, and you can watch the video for yourself. Not a whole lot here necessarily, except that we see in this incident some suspects, two males, go into a carport, and they end up trying to take some stuff. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. You may hear some of the audio there. But these guys start taking some stuff from the carport of this man's home. And there you see him there wearing coveralls. He must be a hardworking man. Yep. So goes into the carport, grabs a pressure washer, grabs some other stuff. And this is where you're going to see the homeowner comes out from the right of, well, the one video shot. Here he is. And he's giving them commands, telling them to stop. I think he even indicates, stop right there, get down, or drop to the ground. And then he fires a shot, which that shot injures one of these thieves, one of these burglars. And that's kind of where that ends there. So he fires a single shot and stops them. Well, they actually take off at that point, but he stopped the theft, right? That was kind of the point. And if you listen to his own words, he says that he's happy that he chose to stop them from he prevented them from stealing his stuff that he's worked so hard for.
Mm-hmm.
That's why this article is in our podcast today, because this is the wrong attitude to have. This is the wrong mindset to have towards these kinds of things. Use of deadly force to prevent theft of property only is not a good idea. Right now, to my knowledge, this man has not been charged with any crimes, but in some jurisdictions, I could see this absolutely having some charges thrown his way by an aggressive DA. Even a mildly aggressive DA might be inclined to go after a man for something like this, because keep in mind that this is Florida. It's not Texas. Texas is I think it's actually probably the only state that has some unique and limited circumstances as it relates to the protection of property with deadly force, which, by the way, one of those circumstances is that it's got to be after dark, which this incident was not. But again, we're in Florida, so it doesn't apply here. Use of deadly force to defend human life, that's okay. Use of deadly force to stop a theft of property, generally not acceptable, period. He says that when he was, approaching them, he was giving them commands. He says that they were acting kind of violent towards him or aggressive towards him. And the words he said in his interview was, he didn't know if they were armed, so he fired a shot. All of that language is very concerning to me. So, I don't like judging people too harshly, but this is a perfect example of a lesson to be learned that, guys, please try to separate in your minds the idea of using a gun to defend property versus defending life.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't add anything to that because we cover this like,
all the time.
we kick the dead horse like constantly. We're like beating that thing, right?
And
But
we will continue to do so, like,
right,
because
we still get, this is a very common like thought process is I work hard for my stuff and therefore I'm going to shoot somebody, and if they die, that's their fault because I work hard for my stuff. And it's just like, dude, I get it. Like we all really work hard, right? Like I don't think anybody doesn't work hard for their stuff. But this isn't the greatest mindset to have. And while he may not be charged, we don't know what's going to happen to this guy. I wouldn't use this as fuel to say, well, this guy didn't get charged, so this is going to be my credo for the rest of my life, because it's going to lead you down into using force when you shouldn't. I'm convinced of that mentality. One big thing that I just wanted, if you guys go to the show notes and watch the video, is these guys aren't like high level sophisticated burglars, right? Like, but you can see that they're coordinated. Like one dude goes one way, the other guy looks like he's on his phone and walks the other way. And so when we're talking about like going outside to confront people, this guy knew there were two because he had a camera and he saw them coming up, but you may go out and only see one guy and not realize that there's other people. And it doesn't take a sophisticated team of burglars to, split up and, hey, if he captures me, you come in and you'll be behind him. So just be aware that, you may not have the whole picture when you go out to protect your stuff. People, if we're willing to shoot somebody over a pressure washer, we have to realize that they're willing to, criminals kill people all the time for $1.50 or for nothing, right? Like they want to steal a dog. I think that was
you looked at me in the wrong way.
Right. So just remember that, like those people are just as willing to end somebody's life as you are if you're willing to go out there and shoot them over a pressure washer. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's the perspective I think we've got to have. I understand people that nobody likes to get their stuff stolen, and we work hard for our stuff. I recognize that, right? But even criminal lives, I'm sorry, I know there's going to be people out there that disagree with me. I think it's incredibly important for us as decent, law-abiding folks to value life, all life, above stuff, including our own stuff. I've had conversations, I've had interactions with people that I know based on those interactions, they would completely disagree with what I'm saying right now. But I think that there's a reason why we're the good guys. Okay? And it's because we don't want people to get hurt. We don't want laws to be broken. We don't want to see people killed, or we don't want to have to do the killing. Okay? I don't carry a gun to kill people. I carry a gun to prevent really bad stuff from happening to me or people I care about. And by that I mean me or my family or friends being killed or receiving great bodily injury. That's why I carry a gun. And it's not about me feeling obligated to kill an attacker upon me or my family. It's that I will use and exercise deadly force until the threat stops. Whatever that takes. If that means they run away, great. Awesome. Mission accomplished. If that means they are shot and wounded, okay, that's what it took, and they stopped. If that means they are shot and they die, that is incredibly unfortunate, but it was their choice. Matt Little and I talked about this in his episode not too long ago, but do the math. That was their choice. It was them versus me. One of us had to go. So I did what I had to do, but the focus was on stopping the threat against me or my loved ones. Stuff is just stuff. I know it sucks. I know we don't like losing stuff that we worked hard to get, and it's hard to replace sometimes. But if we're going to be truly the good guys, that's the attitude we got to have. Human life is inherently valuable. Yes, even the criminals. I know that people will disagree with me on that, but that's what being a good guy is about.
Agree totally. And we're pretty consistent on that. So.
Oh yeah. Just feel like it's as many times as this comes up, and we had, like you said, beat the dead horse on this. I can't assume that somebody isn't listening to this episode right now that is, that I can't assume that you haven't heard other previous episodes before. So it's a lesson that's going to keep coming up again and again, and we're going to preach on again and again. But do not use deadly force to protect property. Just don't. All right. If you want to be a good guy, if you want to avoid as much as possible legal troubles of any kind, criminal or civil, that's the attitude you want to have. Matthew, tell us about this story on globalnews.ca. Man shot dead while filming robbery prank for YouTube.
Yeah, so this is not a great story, but obviously there's some lessons to be learned. So this is happened in let me grab the wrong article here. Here we go. This happened to a 20-year-old man. So basically, I mean, I'm not part of the YouTube or all these challenges that people are filming on. Probably most of you guys are older than that, but maybe there's some people that are listening that are into these YouTube pranks and stuff. But apparently, some of these people go out and they stage robberies and certain things and on YouTube, and they post them, and then they get lots of views and make a whole bunch of money on a video. So a 20-year-old man decides, hey, let's film this prank. They have a couple buddies. They're going to shoot this video, and they're going to pull out some knives and stage this robbery at close to 9:30 at night at this trampoline park or whatever it might be. So they're out in the parking lot. They approach a group of a couple people with knives and are making every intention to make it seem like they're going to rob them. They don't tell them that this is a prank. Just go along with it because they want the real reactions apparently. So they go to do this, and unbeknownst to them, one of the people that they're going to rob is a concealed carrier and is armed. So he justifiably sees two men coming with knives saying that they're going to rob him. He draws his firearm and shoots the guy. He ends up dying. And it's a sad story. But we have to, this is kind of what you were talking about, Riley, like in the other stories, is like, we have to picture ourselves like, how are we going to be perceived by somebody else, right? Like, so whether we have a firearm and we come out into the dead of night when police are searching, or how are we going to be perceived if we're just praying a joke? I'm not saying that anybody out there is going around with knives and pretending to rob people, but obviously this kid didn't have that kind of voice in his head to say, like, wait a second, like, I might get hurt. Like, this is not a joke, right? So remember that people are going to perceive you, and this could be the same thing when you pull out a gun to kind of de-escalate a situation that doesn't involve deadly force, and you pull out a firearm like, okay, I'm going to de-escalate this. Hey, everybody calm down. And somebody's like, whoa, like, dude's starting to draw a gun, and bad stuff could happen. So just be aware of like what you're doing. Yeah.
I put this in that category of people chasing after fame and viral videos, viral status. So this young man has or had a YouTube channel that, like many others, probably had that desire of wanting to be the next big thing. It sounds like he had at least a fair number of followers. I don't know. I don't know how many subscribers he had, but it was all, I think, in the chase of being famous, right? Getting his 15 minutes and probably more than that. filming something that they probably thought would be humorous, like, hey, let's capture on video these funny reactions of people that we scare because we pretend to go rob them. Okay, yeah, I can kind of see the humor in that, except that it's a pretty serious thing. And when you make people actually believe that you're coming after them with a deadly weapon, hey, this is America, bro. And people actually do carry guns. Some of this might fly more in like London, England, or someplace, where people don't walk around carrying handguns. And I know that the anti-gunners would probably look at this and be like, this is exactly why we shouldn't have regular citizens carrying guns, because this death would have been prevented. That's a stupid position to take, because we cover these justified save stories in an effort to put it out there that there are legitimate uses of deadly force by people carrying guns every day across this country that saves lives, that saves the good people's lives. All right. There are limited instances like this where people do stupid stuff. And in this case, yes, it's unfortunate, and there was nothing meant to come out of this, at least nefarious. But this young man made a stupid choice, and it cost him his life. It sucks, but hopefully, and I've seen a few videos because I did a little research on this, Matthew, but there's other YouTube channels that have put out videos about this YouTuber and kind of honoring his life and talking about, hey, maybe this wasn't a smart idea. So, yeah, and Ken's comment here on Facebook, some of those guys that do pranks on strangers are dumb. Yeah. It for this reason, things can go sideways. I've seen some other similar things that didn't necessarily result in deadly force, but people getting beat up and stuff, because they don't know what's going on, right? Anyway. Office employee shoots man during machete attack, Orlando police say. This was according to clickorlando.com. So obviously this happened in Orlando, Florida. And this was a situation at a local temp staffing agency. It was in the morning, it was about 9:30 a.m. A man came into the business. There was some kind of altercation, disagreement, argument. I don't know exactly what. But he started attacking two of the employees there at this business with machete. And one of those two employees was able to draw and fire their gun. And he, I believe, was taken to the hospital with a gunshot wound and expected to be okay. He's charged with attempted felony homicide, aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, and other charges. Both of these employees were taken also to a nearby hospital with lacerations and expect to be okay. So from what I could gather from this, Matthew, is we have two individuals that were cut or stabbed by this machete of his. And one of those in the midst of that is one of the ones who's able to draw and use their gun to stop this attack. So again, talking about how I think incredibly relevant and important it is that in the US of A, we have the Second Amendment, and regular people are able to carry guns that are put to good use in preventing, like this likely would have ended very differently if these two employees were not able to defend themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that this guy really wanted to make the cut. I'll let you guys think about that. But no, it's a joke. Here's the thing, like, right, like this is the issue. I think if we pass this up and we don't kind of touch on this, I think we're missing an opportunity. There's a lot of people that are out of work, and there are a lot of people that are stressed out. There are a lot of people that have seen, their businesses and their opportunities and evaporate, right? And so this guy is and I'm not justifying this at all. I'm just saying, like, these things where we're seeing a lot more carjackings, a lot more burglaries, a lot more strong arm robberies. This is happening because people are becoming desperate and more isolated, right? And so these things are happening, and I have to believe that I'm surmising that this guy might have just lost it because he's going to try to get a job, and maybe he can't get a job, right? It's a staffing, temp agency type thing, and he's trying to make money, and again, not justifying pulling out a machete and trying to chop people up, but we have to be a little bit more on our toes and a little bit more, I don't want to say compassionate, but a little bit more aware of like what's happening around us with human beings in the situations they might be in. So again, the total use of force is justified and everything. I wanted to kind of touch on that and just kind of say like, maybe some good acts of kindness go a long way to stopping something like this from even, happening.
Yep. Yeah. Recently I was in a conversation with somebody about how when we carry a gun, it can tend to be a situation where we treat that gun as a whoopee, right? As like the gun itself is a magic talisman that protects us, and that, I am unprotected if I go somewhere without my gun. And conversation came up, talking about there are some circumstances where maybe we're unable to carry a gun. We're unable to be armed. Whether that's by law or by policy, and you don't want to put your job in jeopardy, that kind of thing. And some people will say, well, I will never go somewhere where I can't carry my gun. And some of that's based on a political argument, Second Amendment argument. Some of that's based on they're uncomfortable not having their gun with them. And I think where I'm going with this is that it's important to recognize that we should always have options and strategies and means whereby we can avoid and or defend ourselves even when we don't have a gun. And some of that can also be based on, evaluating situations and risk profiles and going, hey, I'm in a relatively secure place. The threat profile here, the likelihood of a threat emerging is relatively low. And you might take that into consideration and go, for whatever reason, I don't need to have a gun here, or it's not allowed, or whatever, right? One of the reasons why I advocate for everyday true carry, which I do, I would say out of 365 days in a year, that I carry probably 355 of those days. And it's hard for me to know exactly. There are days I don't carry for a variety of reasons, but they're very few and far in between. Stories like this that we just covered are kind of like one of those stories why I feel the way I do about truly carrying every day, even in situations or in places where I feel relatively safe and secure, or my threat, profile is low. Because stuff happens all the time in places that we don't think of as being potentially or likely violent places or situations. And I'm really glad this individual was able to be armed and able to defend themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew, why don't you tell us about this story out of the Bronx? According to nydailynews.com, Bronx gunman shoots 2 men, 1 fatally, then shot in head fighting over weapon with surviving victim.
Yeah, this is a sad story as well. So you have a shop owner in the Bronx. There's a shop owner, and then there's an employee in the shop. And now we have another guy who's the suspect, and he's a drug dealer, known drug dealer in the area. They say even in the article that he's been selling like spice and just not the greatest guy. So Dante is not the store owner, but he is the employee in the store. He's a big dude. If they show some pictures of him, he's a big guy. And so basically this drug dealer, the bad guy, is inside the store, and Dante basically throws him out, says some things, knocks his hat off and stuff. So of course this guy can't physically overpower Dante, right? So in his wisdom, he says, well, I'm going to come back and kill you. I'm sure that living in this area, that's probably been said to these guys a lot. In fact, Dante, he'd been in prison and stuff, not to besmirch his reputation or anything, but it shows like he wasn't shy to violence, and this wasn't something that he was completely caught off guard about, right? So he probably was like, I can handle myself. This guy's an idiot. But he does come back with a firearm, and he shoots Dante in the head, goes inside, shoots Dante in the head, and Dante dies on scene inside the shop. But the shop owner is outside while this guy goes in, and he hears the shots. He's not armed, but he runs inside to confront this guy. He gets shot at one part it says the chest, but another part maybe the side, so maybe somewhere in there, but it's not life threatening. But he's bleeding a lot, and eventually starts saying, it says that he's going in and out of consciousness. He ends up surviving, but in the meantime, he overpowers this or starts wrestling with this bad guy with the gun who just shot Dante, and he either during the struggle, the bad guy gets shot in the head, or he gets the gun and shoots the guy. It's not really clear, but there's a video. They drag this guy out, and a bystander and the store owner who had been shot, you see him just beating this guy about the head out on the snowbank that's out in front of the shop. So the store owner and the dude that the bad guy, both are taken to the hospital with injuries. The store owner seems to be that he's going to recover, but the bad guy is still in critical condition. So it's just sad. And then they go and talk about Dante, and mention that he was in prison, but he had been working hard. He has kids, and he was a good guy in the community and trying to do good stuff. But they said one of the things that came was kind of stood out to me is they were talking about some of the dudes in the neighborhood were being interviewed, and one of the guys said that he was like hard-headed or he wasn't afraid to get hands-on with people, and that can be a good thing, but it can also expose you to violence back to you. So I'm not saying like that he deserved any of this. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, if we're going to take some lessons out of here, maybe maybe at certain times you got to pick your battles as far as how far are you willing to get involved with using physical violence or something like that to get the point across. Maybe calling the police or something like that would have been better. Who knows? I don't know if the police response time, I'm not saying he did anything wrong. I'm just saying in our situations, if we have an opportunity to possibly pick a different course, it might be the wiser choice. But it's a sad story. It's a definitely sad story, but it was pretty cool that this guy, not armed, he goes in there and he's like, I'm going to, help my employee who's a friend of his. And even not being armed, he's in there trying to affect the outcome in a positive way.
Yeah. Yep. So while you've been explaining some of this, I started playing the surveillance video showing the outside of the store part of this fight, and you see them wrestle him outside the store, and like you said, taking control of this man and basically beating him, and again at some point during this he was shot in the head with his own gun, apparently surviving. So pretty interesting, but it goes to show how often people actually survive headshots more often than or than you think. So anyway, quite a risky move the shop owner made to actually hear the gunshot, to recognize what was taking place, to actually run in there, put himself in harm's way. That's pretty interesting. I mean, that's remarkable, frankly. Literally running into harm's way, I think is a testament of the kind of person this guy must be, as far as, willing to go in there and try to help his employee and help the people in his store. He was wounded himself, but apparently the gun shop owner or the shop owner is going to survive as well. Just a remarkable story. Of course, it's in Bronx, so none of these guys, none of the victims in this case were probably packing any heat. So that's unfortunate, because imagine how different it would be if they could actually defend themselves properly.
Does anybody think that if there was a no gun sign on the door that would have made any difference? Like, I just would love to ask somebody, like, just in this situation, let's not talk about any other situation, but if there was a no gun sign, you think that that would have been any different? Like, of course it wouldn't, right? So I don't know. I don't have to preach to the choir, but
and New York has some of the most absolutely strict gun laws in the country, and yet here you have a drug dealer packing around a gun. Anyway, we have 2 more stories. Let's wrap this up here. In Loris, South Carolina, this is a really sad story. Actually, hold on. I was thinking a different one. I'm going to give you that story. I'm going to do this one. All right.
Okay.
Suspect shot dead by neighbor after killing mother and stabbing father in Apple Valley. All right. So this happened in Apple Valley, California. A 30-year-old man was shot and killed by his neighbor. And this happened because this 33-year-old man was stabbing his stepmother and father. Some kind of argument broke out between him and his dad and stepmom. They're both, not. He's 33 years old. His dad's 58. His stepmom is 55. He starts stabbing them with a knife. All right. And apparently this either started outside the home or went outside the home, because the victims were found in the street. He did end up stabbing and killing his stepmom, and a neighbor, actually several neighbors, tried to assist. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. You have this man stabbing his dad and his stepmom. At some point, neighbors come out. They try to stop him. People are probably, yelling at him, whatever. He does actually break off the initial attack. All right. And at this point, neighbors step in and try to help this man named Jerry. That's this guy's father, Jerry, his stepmom, Lorraine. Neighbors called 911 and stepped in to assist Jerry and Lorraine. But then the son returned again with the knife and proceeded to attack Lorraine with the knife again. It's likely from the second attack on her is where she was ultimately killed. His dad ended up in the hospital and is recovering from serious life-threatening injuries. One of the neighbors went back into his home, and it was an 84-year-old man who retrieved a handgun and went out and shot the son and killed him right there. And that's what it took to stop this attack. So the big thing that I wanted to highlight here, Matthew, and I'll let you, throw in any other lessons that you took from this, but the big thing that is, the saying, it ain't over till the fat lady sings, right? Problem is we don't always know when the fat lady sings in situations like this. The fact is sometimes situations appear to be over and they're not. You remember the situation out of Pennsylvania where the neighbors arguing over the snow, and the man shot the woman and her husband, and then goes back and comes back with a rifle and finishes them off. And in the short interim there, that little brief period between the initial attack and the final attack, neighbors come out and are checking on them and seeing if everything's okay, and that, trying to render assistance and aid. And that's when the man comes back to finish them off. So this reminded me of that story, because neighbors interceded and managed to initially break off this attack, but then he returns. So let that be a lesson to all of us. All right. That we can't assume that it's over until it's really, really over. What that means is, let's say that I used my gun in self-defense against a threat of some kind, and that threat ran off. I might be inclined to think, okay, problem, averted, right? I used my gun, the threat ran away, all is well now. What if that threat comes back? Okay, just keep that in mind. All right, we still need to be maintaining our personal security. We need to get to a place of safety if we are able to. We need to take cover if we need to, if we can. We need to, if we're unable to do any of those things, we need to still remain as best as we can, alert and aware of what's going on, and be ready for that attack to continue or resume again. It's certainly a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't really add anything other than just, I mean, if anybody, and I think we talk about this quite a bit, but like everybody who's listening right now, like think of the scenario where you're going to use your firearm, and that everybody probably has like their top scenario that they're like, okay, I'm going to do this, and the bad guys, but like, all right, just kind of throw that away, because that's probably not what's going to happen, right? Like, it's probably not going to go down the way you think. So like you said, you have to be prepared and aware of your surroundings, and know that you're exposing yourself to stuff that you just don't know. And I'm not, we've never said don't ever get involved in anything unless it has to do with you. I wouldn't take a hardline stance. I would just say, understand what you're getting involved in when you intervene on somebody else's behalf. Mm-hmm. Thank God he did, because, this could have ended quite differently. But, I don't want to beat the dead horse, but there we go.
Yep. To that point, it's like the first, it's not really a rule, but like the first thing that a first responder, like an EMS, fire, paramedic, like one of the first things that you learn going through training is make sure the scene is safe. Mm-hmm. Before you get involved. Before you start trying to render aid to people, you have to make sure the scene is safe. Usually it's given in the context of like accidents and those kinds of things, that, hey, are there other vehicles that, we're on a highway and we're trying to render aid, like, we need to make sure that, or somebody just got electrocuted, right? Like, hey, I can't just automatically assume it's safe for me to grab this person. I might, they may still be electrified, or the area may be electrified. That kind of thing. It's about making sure the scene is safe first before you consider rendering aid, because if you don't, then you yourself get hurt, and now we've got two people that need aid, and you were unfortunately one of those that was qualified or able to step in and assist. So the same goes to these kind of situations with self-defense, use of force. You got to make sure the scene is safe. Mm-hmm. That's the big lesson. Yeah. Matthew, final story. Tell us about this one out of Loris, South Carolina, where a man shot and killed a man who had a knife at this gas station in self-defense after a road rage incident.
Yep. So there you go. Road rage incident. You can kind of, imagine what happens from that. So road rage incident, one guy in a car pulls up to a gas pump. The other guy that was obviously angry pulls up behind him. The guy in the front car stays in his vehicle. The guy in the rear car that pulls up behind the other guy or the truck gets out of his vehicle, approaches the guy in the truck in front with a knife, tries to open the driver's side door, and the driver shoots him. So it's it's a cut and dry, basically. We could say, okay, obviously don't do this, right? Like, but I think it's so like, it's crazy, because we just covered something last week, I think it was, where a shooting, started with a road rage incident. And so, it's just so simple to just say, look, I don't know, unless somebody purposely was trying to run you off the road and kill you, or, shooting at you on the freeway, there's really no reason to ever take it to the point where, you're this angry over somebody cutting you off or whatever it might be. Right. But like, then we have to look at it and say, the dude in the front, like, I don't know, did he do anything wrong? He really didn't. Like, he went to a place, we say go to a public place where, and this is during the daytime, I think it was 5:30 p.m. So what other things could he have done? Well, maybe, he could have driven away as the guy approached with the knife, right? But who knows? Then this becomes another road rage incident at another place. But think about other options. I'm not saying this guy did anything wrong. I think it was totally justified. If somebody's trying to pull the door open or has a knife, then and you can articulate that you thought that he was going to be able to gain access and stab you. That I don't want to get into the particulars of that. At least you can, Riley. But I just wanted the overarching idea is give yourself options. If you can, give yourself the option to drive away. If you know this guy's pulling up behind you and you see him get out and he has a knife, or he's even approaching your vehicle, maybe you just drive away, right? Leave your vehicle running and keep the doors locked and drive away if that happens. So I'm not, again, just giving ourselves options always is better than having to react to what the other person, the situation the other person gives us.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think that's a fine analysis of all of that. And that was exactly kind of where my mind went to is consider all the avenues available to you to try to avoid the situation, avoid the road rage incident. It's entirely possible that some things may happen where, due to no fault of our own necessarily, we somehow, because we just happen to come in contact with the wrong person the wrong day, and that person wants to take their rage out on you and whoever else, you might not have that choice or that option to de-escalate or get away from the situation. But think about all your avenues for escape. Think about contacting 911 as soon as possible. If you can get to a police station, if you can get to where a police officer is able to pull in behind you or intercept the situation, while you're still able to move on the road, that might be better than getting stopped and actually being, coming face to face with this attacker. Maybe due to the way this other person is driving, it makes it less safe to continue driving. Well, again, just be really thinking heads up, looking for opportunities and avenues for escape, or getting to a place of safety, right? And of course, if all else fails, well, at least like in this case, hopefully you are properly armed, properly trained, properly prepared to do what you got to do.
Yes, sir.
After all other options have been exhausted. And that's the key.
Yep.
Well, great. Appreciate covering these justified save stories with you today, Matthew. Guys, a quick reminder that today's episode is sponsored by the 2021 Guardian Conference, September 17th to the 19th in Oklahoma City. Again, we talked earlier about Larry Vickers, Matt Little, Jeff Gonzalez being a newly listed instructor on the list here for this event. Spencer Keeper's involved, Steve Moses, Chuck Haggard, Sam Middlebrook, Brian Eastridge, Haney McMood. You might not recognize some of those names, but I assure you, all these guys we have vetted and we know them to be excellent instructors and experts in their respective fields. Andrew Branca, Todd Fossey, guys, you're going to want to be here, and you see the event dates and times listed there. Breakfast, lunch provided each day of the event. By breakfast, we mean it'll be kind of like continental style breakfast, but there will be some breakfast available on site each day. Lunch will be provided each day of the event. Snacks and water on site. There'll be vendors there, opportunities for networking. It's going to be awesome, guys. So check it out, guardianconference.com. Take advantage of the super early bird and early bird pricing, and we hope to see you at the first annual Guardian Conference presented by CCW Safe. And also go take a look at readyupgear.com and the brand new modular compact flashlight that we call the Spark. You see it here in some of the packaging that I'm holding up. Guys, it's an awesome little light. I really like this little light. And we actually spent a lot of time and effort into the design behind this light and making it as compact as we could with as much brightness and performance as we could get out of it for this size. And also it's modular. Okay. So I won't go into details because we're out of time, but the modular aspect opens up a whole new world of possibilities with this light as far as what you can do with it. And you can learn more, again, at readyupgear.com. And if you didn't catch my drift, I mean, it's already modular with what it comes with, but guys, there's likely going to be other options coming down the road, and that's really exciting. Matthew, we need to give away a prize. Guys,
We do.
this week we give away a podcast, a lucky podcast listener winner get a prize for signing up via our giveaways at concealedcarry.com/podcast prize is the link where you can do it. What are we giving away today, Matthew?
Today we're giving away one of the Big Stick t-shirts.
Yeah, one of my favorites. So it's a pretty cool t-shirt that we designed a while back that borrows from a phrase by President Theodore Roosevelt talking about his foreign policy. And his idea was speak softly and carry a big stick. And we think that's such an apt descriptor of how we want to be as concealed carriers with the proper mindset, right? Speak softly, avoid conflict, all that. But, you know, when the time comes that you need to do something more, well, then have a big stick. Have the ability to actually defend yourself properly. So one lucky winner of the Big Stick t-shirt, as we call it. Matthew, who is it this week?
It happens to be somebody by the name of Matthew. So congratulations, Matthew, with the last name that starts with an F. I'll be emailing you. Make sure you check your spam folders and all that.
Did you sign up for the giveaway? Not open to employees and contractors at concealedcarry.com.
No. This is not me. This is not me, but it is a cool shirt. I wish I had one. So
awesome. Congrats, Matthew, for being our lucky winner. And Matthew, if you could just tease for us next week's prize.
It is something we've never given away before. Draw like a pro course.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that was a fun one to put together. So actually our social media manager, Mitch, and I went to the range and filmed that. It's about an hour-long course where really what it is intended to teach folks how to draw better, right? How to be more efficient in your draw stroke. And so we used Mitch as our analog for that and spent the time with Mitch making him draw better. And you can see very clearly in that video how he goes from, one speed to quite a bit faster speed. And that's pretty awesome to see when people make improvements. And sometimes the tweaks are very minimal. So if you want to learn how to draw like a pro, guys, go sign up for next week's giveaway. It'll be the giveaway will close, I think, Tuesday night at midnight, and we'll announce the winner Wednesday during the podcast. concealedcarry.com/podcast prize.
Right on.
It's time to get out of here and let you all go. So with that, a reminder to train right, train often, and train safe so you can fight hard, fight fast, and fight true. Take care.